We need a technician, not a maintenance worker." The words cut through the hangar's thick air like ice, dripping from Staff Sergeant Mitchell's lips. His voice carried the weight of 3 sleepless hours and a mission timeline that would wait for no one. "But since you're already here," he extended the worn mop toward the woman, "you can start with that grease stain." A few of the younger airmen, eager to curry favor with the man who controlled their daily assignments, let out muffled chuckles. The woman said nothing. She didn't meet Mitchell's challenging stare, didn't acknowledge the suppressed laughter rippling through the hangar. Her gaze remained fixed on the far corner where the massive steel door of the secure electronics vault stood like a digital tombstone, silent, unyielding, and completely unresponsive. She simply reached out and took the mop. Her grip was steady, her expression unreadable. Her silence seemed to absorb the mockery, leaving no echo behind. But across the hangar, Colonel Harrison, there for emergency oversight of the critical system's failure, paused his conversation with the base commander. He watched the way her fingers, free of rings or polish, wrapped around the worn handle. The way she stood, not slouched in defeat, but perfectly balanced, her weight distributed with an economy of posture he recognized from years of command. There was something about her stillness, something ancient and disciplined. If you believe true expertise is demonstrated, not declared, type "demonstrated" in the comments. The quiet professional simply turned and began to work, the soft sound of mop against metal becoming the only noise in a room thick with unspoken judgment. The situation had moved beyond critical into catastrophic territory. The newest generation Titan security protocol, a quantum-encrypted system protecting the base's most sensitive satellite communication equipment, had suffered what the tech manual euphemistically called a cascading digital failure. It wasn't just offline, it had locked itself into a configuration that existed nowhere in any documentation, creating a digital maze that trapped millions of dollars worth of strategic communication hardware behind impenetrable electronic barriers. For 3.5 agonizing hours, Staff Sergeant Mitchell and his team of certified technicians had thrown every approved procedure at the problem. They had initiated soft resets, attempted emergency overrides, and consulted technical documentation until their eyes burned from screen glare. The result remained maddeningly consistent, a solid red status indicator that seemed to mock their every effort. Mitchell's professional frustration had crystallized into personal affront, and the arrival of this unremarkable woman, dispatched from some obscure technical division buried deep within the command structure, felt like a calculated insult to his expertise. She wore coveralls with no name tape, no rank insignia, no identifier of any kind. She looked less like the specialized systems consultant referenced in the urgent dispatch, and more like someone who had wandered in from the motor pool. His decision to hand her cleaning supplies wasn't just dismissive, it was a public declaration that he would not be shown up by command's apparent inability to take this crisis seriously. He ruled this hangar, and his authority would not be undermined by bureaucratic incompetence. Yet, her quiet acceptance of the menial task disturbed him in ways he couldn't articulate. She cleaned with strange, methodical precision, her movements efficient and purposeful. There was no wasted motion, no hint of resentment or frustration. It was the calm of deep water, a placid surface concealing unknowable depths beneath. The pressure in the hangar mounted with each passing minute. The communication window was tied to satellite orbital mechanics and theater-level strategic requirements. Without the encrypted relay systems locked behind that vault door, critical missions across 3 time zones would operate blind. The jets on the flight line might as well have been museum pieces. Colonel Harrison approached Mitchell, his boots creating sharp echoes that cut through the tension. He said, "Staff Sergeant, status report. The window is closing rapidly. Is your specialist making any progress?" The question was phrased as inquiry, but delivered as direct order. Mitchell felt heat creep up his neck. He was being forced to admit failure in front of his own people. He turned, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger, and called across the hangar. "All right, specialist, you're up. Let's see what headquarters sent us." The woman stopped cleaning. She didn't rush or show any sign of urgency. She carefully placed the mop against a nearby workbench, ensuring it was perfectly aligned with the edge. Then she walked toward the vault door. She carried no diagnostic equipment, no tablet computer, no toolkit of any kind. The assembled airmen watched with a mixture of curiosity and lingering skepticism. The hangar fell into profound silence, the hum of ventilation systems becoming the only noise. She didn't even glance at the responsive digital interface. Instead, she approached the door itself, her eyes scanning the seams where reinforced steel met the hardened frame. Every seasoned military professional in that room recognized something in her bearing. The absolute stillness of her head as she examined the mechanism, the way she traced her fingertips along the cold metal surface, not as exploration, but as a surgeon reading vital signs. Her breathing remained slow and deliberate, a masterclass in composure under extreme pressure. Then she began. It wasn't a procedure from any manual. It was a language of touch and pressure, a series of soft but precisely placed contacts with the palm of her hand on specific points of the doorframe, far from any electronic interface. Tap, tap, tap. It was a physical conversation with the soul of the machine, a dialogue in vibrations and resonance. The airman stared in confusion. Mitchell scoffed under his breath. "What is this, some kind of mechanical seance?" But Colonel Harrison watched with growing recognition, a buried memory surfacing from decades of classified briefings. She shifted position, her fingers finding a nearly invisible junction near the primary locking mechanism. She pressed one finger firmly into the gap, holding it there with surgical precision. Then, with her other hand, she delivered a single, controlled strike to an unmarked point on the doorframe. No dramatic crash, just a deep, resonant sound from within. The sound of immense pressure being instantly released. The mocking red light on the panel blinked once and then died. With a soft hiss of equalizing air, the heavy steel door swung inward, unlocked. For a full 10 seconds, the only movement in the hangar was the slow, majestic swing of the open vault door. The silence was absolute, a vacuum where snickers and arrogance had once existed. It was the sound of impossibility made real. Staff Sergeant Mitchell stood frozen, his mouth agape, the condescending retort he'd been preparing dissolving on his tongue. He looked from the open door to the quiet woman and back again. His mind, so accustomed to flowcharts and technical manuals, could not process what it had just witnessed. "No," he whispered, the word barely a puff of air. "That's impossible. There's no manual override, no physical bypass." He took a step forward, staring at the doorframe as if expecting to find a hidden button or keyhole. There was nothing, just smooth, impenetrable steel. The woman simply stood by the now open door, waiting, her work done. She hadn't broken the lock. She had communed with it, using a secret language that Mitchell, for all his authority, didn't know existed. Colonel Harrison moved first. He walked past the shell-shocked Mitchell, his eyes locked on the woman. The flicker of curiosity in his gaze had been replaced by deep, profound respect. He stopped directly in front of her, ignoring the now accessible weaponry. "Groom Lake," Colonel Harrison said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of revelation. He turned to his aide, a young captain holding a data tablet. "Captain, pull up the file for our dispatch specialist, authorization code Sierra Tango November 6. The captain's fingers flew across the screen. He paled as the file loaded, his eyes widening. He looked up, his voice hushed with awe. "Sir, there's almost nothing here. It's mostly redacted. Name? Dr. Sarah Chen. Clearance level, Onyx. Unit affiliation, unlisted. Just a call sign, Phoenix." He swallowed hard before continuing. "There's only one note in the special skills section, sir. It reads, Lead Design Architect and Chief Field Implementation Specialist." The hangar seemed to shrink. Colonel Harrison looked at Dr. Chen, and for the first time, everyone saw her not as a janitor, but as the ghost who had built the very vault that had defied them.